What's up and welcome to the video. And I know I say this every time we start, but we really do have a really fun one tonight. This is the OnePlus Open, and for the sake of keeping the intro short, this is my favorite phone of 2023. And that's not a light sentence because, you know, we're fortunate enough to try out a whole bunch of smartphones throughout the year. The OnePlus Open takes the cake. So let's talk about why. Foldables are a lot of fun, and here in the US, we're no strangers to foldables either. And I would say the company that's really been ahead of the pack has been Samsung, right? They have the Galaxy Z Fold line, which is similar to the OnePlus Open. And then they also have the Flip line. Both of those phones are now on their 5th generation. So Samsung has been doing this for quite some time. And it's led to inspiration here in the States from other companies. We saw Google make the Pixel Fold as well. And now OnePlus has jumped into the Fold. No pun intended as well whenever it comes to foldable phones here in the US. But I gotta say, this might be OnePlus's first attempt at making a foldable phone, but I think, you know, and we've tested our fair share. Like when I think back to the Z Fold line, we've tested every Z Fold since 3, and we've tested every Z Flip since 3. When I think back to the foldable phones that we've used, this is far and away my favorite, and it mainly comes down to the fact that there were a couple of things I wanted to see Samsung improve on the Fold line year over year that they just haven't really got around to doing yet. Still a fantastic phone, but this phone did all those things right off the bat. And we're gonna get and start with the cover display on the front. Because the display itself, the cover display, is a flagship one through and through. Okay, we're looking at 6.3 inches LTPO OLED display with a 120 hertz refresh rate. And since it's LTPO, it does have a nice variable refresh rate, which, you know, helps with battery life. And as far as brightness goes, 2,800 nits peak max brightness. And all of that aside, right? That's a fantastic display by 2023 standards. All of that aside, the best part about it is the design and the aspect ratio. It's at an aspect ratio that is actually usable. So in the foldable landscape here in the United States, at least for the ones that try to replicate a standard phone on the outside and then unfold to a small tablet, you have Pixel Fold, OnePlus Open, Galaxy Z Fold 5. The Open falls in the middle. The Pixel Fold kind of looks like a passport. It's wider but shorter than this display. And the Z Fold, I've talked about it all the time, it's narrower but taller than this display. Now on a phone like the Fold, almost 90% of the time, as soon as I'd pick it up, I'd unfold it to use the larger inner screen. On something like the OnePlus Open, this display on the outside, the cover display, is so nice that honestly, I'm at like a 50-50 split. I have absolutely no problem using the cover display for things like typing or even things like watching YouTube videos whenever I need to walk around and I just don't want to have it in the mini tablet mode. So I gotta give OnePlus some props, man. This cover display is fantastic. Now, when you open up the phone, the main display is just as great as the cover display. And that's mainly because OnePlus is reusing all of the same factors that make the cover display so great, right? So you're going to have a much bigger display, obviously, 7.8 inches, but you're going to have all the great stuff. LTPO OLED, 120 hertz refresh rate, 2,800 nits peak max brightness. The main display on this phone is fantastic. Now, there are a couple of things that make this main display my favorite out of all the foldable devices that I've used. So one is going to be the aspect ratio. So the aspect ratio on the main display for the OnePlus Open is more of a squarish aspect ratio. I noticed whenever I was using phones like the Galaxy Z Fold 5, not only would I open the phone much more than use the cover display, but as soon as I would open it, I would turn it into landscape mode, mainly because I was consuming a lot of media on that device. Now, with something like the OnePlus Open, since the aspect ratio is square, whether you hold the phone in portrait or landscape, you're still going to get a very similar viewing experience whenever you're consuming media. And number two, and this is, again, something that I've mentioned in all the other, I think all of the other Z Fold videos, is that OnePlus did a fantastic job with crease management on the Open. And that's not to say that the crease on a phone like the Z Fold 5 is bad, right? Because I feel like Samsung has improved the crease on those phones year over year. But on a phone like the OnePlus Open, it's really hard for you to even see the crease whenever you're looking at the phone dead on. And you can still kind of feel it a smidge whenever you run your finger across the display, but you really have to tilt the phone to some like really harsh viewing angles or have some really, really direct light at specific viewing angles to see the crease on the main display. So all in all, I mean, even whenever you're using the main display, I think it's fantastic because some of the caveats that come from having a folding phone, you don't really have those here. So the main display on the OnePlus Open is just as fantastic as the cover display. And of course, given that this phone is not only pretty expensive, but it's also going to be a foldable device, OnePlus did a really good job of decking out the internals for what you would expect from not just a 2023 flagship, but a very, very expensive 2023 foldable. So Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, 16 gigs of RAM, and 512 gigs of internal storage. So we know the performance is there. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 is a tried and true processor for 2023. It's fantastic. And on a phone like this, I think OnePlus has done a great job of incorporating one really cool multitasking feature into Oxygen OS, which, in case you're wondering, it's Oxygen OS 13 over Android 13. Hopefully Android 14 is in the pipe somewhere for this phone. But I love the way OnePlus has implemented multitasking for the Open. So it's really cool. Let's say I'm using my main display and I have an app open in full screen mode, like YouTube or something like that. I can swipe down from the top of the display with 2 fingers to open up a panel that will allow me to select another app to bring into full screen. Let's say something like Google Chrome. Now, if I wanted to, I can also bring up the dock. That's, it's pretty common for a lot of folding phones to have a dock on the bottom. And OnePlus has a little app drawer built into the dock, and I can actually push and hold an app and drag that into the 2-app mix and create a 3-application full screen multitasking experience. And it's really cool. So let's say you're multitasking 2 apps. You can actually have one app in full screen and then a very small preview of the other app towards the right. And you can kind of tap to shuffle back and forth to full screen experiences between the apps. If you bring a 3rd app into the foray, it typically will come on either the bottom or the top of the 2 that you already have. And you can tap between the 3 to shuffle back and forth, multitasking full screen experiences between all of those applications. And it's all really seamless, it's all really fluid, and it works really, really well. And multitasking is not something unique to something like the OnePlus Open, but I really like the way OnePlus executed their version of multitasking with Oxygen OS. I find it really intuitive and really cool. Now, of course, whenever you're using a phone with a large screen like this, or the ability to just do a lot, you're probably going to run through the battery pretty quick if you're using it quite a bit. Now, the OnePlus Open doesn't have a small battery by any means, but it's also not something that's going to blow you away by 2023 standards. 4,800 milliamp hours, and I found that my screen on time with the device has been about 6.5 to 7-ish hours. So on a good day, it's lasting me about a day and a half between charges. Now, the great thing is OnePlus still has some amazing fast charge technology, and my hat's off to OnePlus, man. You see this box right here on the table? This box has a giant charging brick and the cable that you need to charge your device. They actually give it to you in the box as well. So props to OnePlus for not only incorporating super fast charging technology. I mean, anytime this phone has been low on battery, I've been able to charge it up to full in under an hour, regardless of the situations. But they actually give one to you in the box. You don't have to buy it separately. So that's fantastic. But in case you were wondering, unfortunately, there is no wireless charging. So that's something you should definitely know about as well. And of course, it wouldn't be a smartphone review without talking about camera performance. And my goodness, does the OnePlus Open have a gigantic camera module. I mean, the camera module itself is so big on the back of this phone with, the Hasselblad branding, of course, that the flash module is actually not built into that same camera ring. It's on the top left corner of the back of the phone. But there is some good reason here. So let's talk about the specs before we talk a little bit about the performance. So we have a 48 megapixel wide angle lens, a 48 megapixel ultra wide angle lens, and a 64 megapixel telephoto lens with 3 times optical zoom. Now those are very high megapixel count numbers, but as we all know, you don't need super high megapixels to get really, really nice photos. And another thing, OnePlus had almost like a 2-piece system going against them here. So for one, foldable phones historically, at least here in the States, historically have not had like the best camera systems. Even whenever you look at something like a Pixel Fold, it was producing somewhat different photos compared to a 7 Pro. And that's Google that has had camera prowess down for years now. And OnePlus historically has never made the best cameras, like that were ultra impressive compared to the pack, right? But I was pleasantly surprised with the camera performance on the OnePlus Open. I honestly, It's probably my favorite camera performance out of any foldable I've used. And again, I've used Fold 5, Fold 4, and Fold 3 from Samsung. The photos that I was able to capture on the OnePlus Open and the videos as well, I was really, really happy with. Is it going to be comparable to like the best flagship camera systems out there? Probably not. But are you going to get some really, really great photos and videos under a variety of conditions? Absolutely yes. And I'm actually really happy to talk about something like that on the OnePlus Open, that they have, I mean, kind of nailed the camera experience on the smartphone. And it all just kind of ties together into a foldable smartphone experience that is really comfortable to use day to day. Foldable smartphones are still very much a niche category, mainly because of how expensive they are. And we'll talk about price here in a second. But there is a lot to like about the OnePlus Open, from how light and durable and solid the hinge on a phone like this feels, which, let's be honest, if you're trying to nail the experience on a folding phone, your hinge has to be fantastic. And the hinge on the OnePlus Open is great. Whether or not you're going to use the cover display or the main display, the technology is there. Both displays are high quality. The aspect ratio on the cover display is comfortable and usable for day-to-day use. OnePlus has done a fantastic job of sealing the phone all around, so I've never really had any issues with getting anything like small fibers of dust or grain into the actual main display whenever I'm using it. That part is great. There's a fast and accurate fingerprint sensor built into the power button on the side of the phone. The alert slider is here. The speakers sound great. Camera performance is great. The phone charge is fast. Everything about the OnePlus Open is fantastic, but of course you have to consider the price, right? So whenever I purchased the OnePlus Open, OnePlus was offering a $200 slash off the price of the phone for like essentially nothing. They said it was a trade-in bonus, but for me, you didn't even have to trade in anything to save that $200. And on top of that, pre-ordering the OnePlus Open whenever I did, snagged me a pair of OnePlus Buds Pro 2 for free, which is, a couple $100 worth in value as well too. Now the interesting part is the OnePlus Open at that, I believe it was $1,499 price point, it undercuts its competition in a phone like the Galaxy Z Fold 5, and OnePlus makes it really easy on you if you wanted to order a phone, because you don't have to mess around with storage options, and you only get two colors. You get this emerald color that I have right now for the review, and you also get your option to get a black color too. But that's a little interesting because the black color has faux leather on the back of it. And that actually kind of shifted me more towards the emerald one, because I would rather have glass on the back of the phone. And as far as, again, your storage and your internals, you get one choice: 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of internal storage. So OnePlus makes it really easy for you to buy a phone like this. But you just got to be able to put up with that price tag. Now, if you can get past that price tag, I think this phone is absolutely fantastic. For a first generation foldable device, OnePlus absolutely nailed it. And I know they did have some help from, their sister company, Oppo. They have the Find N3. They're very similar phones. But either way, I'm glad that OnePlus utilized that experience, because for a first gen foldable, they've absolutely nailed it. I see my SIM card being in this phone for a very, very long time. And of course, if you enjoyed the review and you're new here, consider hitting the like and subscribe button down below. As always, thank you so much for watching. I can never thank you enough. And have a great one, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Well, but of course, you can change your own color saturation settings in the system settings. I just have mine set to more saturated. But I actually prefer the cover I said cover display again. Dang, bro, I keep saying cover display.